Here are some tips for troubleshooting and installation of your RapidAir filter regulator. When plumbing in the regulator, the hose from the air compressor must enter the port labeled IN on the regulator. There is an out port, and this would go to your system, a machine, air hoses, things like that. If you are experiencing air leaking from the area under the adjustment knob after you air up your regulator, this could be the cause. You have the air plumbed in backwards from the air compressor going in the out port. So switch it to go to the in port. If the ports on your filter regulator are not orientated correctly for your installation, meaning the in port you'd rather have instead of the left side on the right side, but now your gauge is not shown, we can easily move this gauge to the cover plate side and move the cover plate. Twist the cover on the gauge to expose the screws. A small sharp Phillips screwdriver will remove the screws and gently pull the gauge from the housing. You'll notice there's an O-ring down in the housing. I like to use a small Allen wrench to go in there and not damage the O-ring and pull it out. This O-ring must be moved with the gauge. So put it on the stem. Remove the back cover plate and its O-ring and move it here, and then you'll be all set. That's easy to flip the gauge. When assembling the threaded ports on the filter regulator, we recommend a couple wraps of Teflon tape on the fitting. Do not insert it dry. It will lock up and gall. Use a good quality Teflon tape, something of medium density, and do about 2 wraps, going with the thread. Remember, we don't want any Teflon tape inside the filter regulator to plug it up, so don't have a lot of it hanging into the center. After that, brush some pipe sealant on it. Be generous. This helps the threads from galling up and will also seal the air. Try to wipe any excess away from the inner diameter so it doesn't enter the filter regulator. Yes, it is a little messy, but it is important and you can wipe it off later. Once you have all the plumbing to your filter regulator and you have aired it up for the first time, you will need to turn the adjustment cap to build up pressure. The cap is in a lock position and you will need to pull it up until you see the orange ring. Notice on top it says plus or minus for increase or decrease pressure. Clockwise increases the pressure, and you will notice the gauge starting to build pressure. You'll need to do this multiple times to get it up to the correct pressure, usually between 90 and 110 psi. If you notice that there's air leaking out of your drain, there's not enough pressure that you have applied to the cap in order to seal the bowl. It requires a minimum of 20 psi. You'll notice it's spring loaded and the pressure is going to push the plunger down and seal it in the bottom of the bowl. When no pressure is applied, the spring brings the plunger back up and water can come out of the device. At any time, if you want to drain the water under pressure, simply push up on the plunger. The internal filter should be changed every 2 years or upon heavy use. Drain all the air out of the system and remove the bowl. Simply slide down the lock, rotate, and pull. You'll notice 2 little marks when you reinsert it. Make sure that the bottom is orientated and it clicks into place. Remove the glass bowl and remove the cap to expose the filter. You can wash it out with soapy water or replace it as new. Be sure to make sure your bowl guard is locked into place before airing it up. Once you've had your regulator in use for many months, you may notice air leaking out of the cap suddenly. This may be due to a couple of issues. First, the air compressor may have put enough oil into the system to gum up the internal components. Or a piece of dirt or sludge may have got from your compressor to also do the same thing. But it's easy to fix it. Pull up on a cap and first drain all the pressure from your system. Turn the adjustment cap counterclockwise to remove the pressure on the spring. There's a good heavy spring in here and you need to do that first. So back it out until you feel it's loose. Then on the top, make sure you use a good quality screwdriver and remove the 4 screws. Once you have the screws removed, carefully take off the housing to expose the spring. Pull off the adjustment nut and the spring. Make sure to keep the orientation correctly. Underneath is the rubber diaphragm. This is the culprit that's giving you the trouble. So you're going to remove the diaphragm and clean this area in the internal area. There may be dirt, there may be sludge, there may be some oil. Clean this thoroughly. You'll notice the orientation when putting back the diaphragm in. The large brass washer is going to go to the bottom. Reassemble it, make sure it's centered in this housing and not offset to one side. Reinstall the spring, the adjustment, and the cover. Then go ahead and put in the 4 screws and put it back into service.